Difficult
conversations. Man, do we love to like avoid them and have them?
Oh, but because we talked about the saboteurs before, and you said yours was avoidance. So I was going to ask you, like, how does that play into difficult conversations?
It's an interesting one. It's like when I'm going to have a difficult conversation, obviously it's much better like that to be prepared and be on the front foot. Your brain will love that if you can prepare. And I'm not saying because your primitive brain, because obviously I'm a hypnotherapist, I will talk about brains. Your primitive brain will try and predict all the worst outcomes. And actually that will just make things worse, because by the time you get to have that real conversation with that real person, which will probably go okay, because most people are okay in these conversations, no one's going to turn around and like poke you in the eye.
But hopefully not.
Hopefully not. If not, we've got another issue. But like with the your primitive brain will like try and predict all these worst case scenarios, and by the time you get to the conversation, you'll be so stressed out about it going wrong so many times. So a good bit of advice, and please like give me your take on this, is because we've got to kind of settle primitive brain and like make it happy that we've got at least some planned outcomes so we can settle down. And also, yeah, that really helps us manage that conversation. So a good bit of advice I had was prepare for a best outcome, a worst outcome, and a wild card.
Oh.
So because then you've got like you
run the scenarios.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've run the best. So even if it's slightly like different from that, you've got something to prepare. If it's the worst and it's a slight variation of that, your brain will probably be like, okay, we can work with this. And the wild card, it kind of gets your brain used to thinking, okay, maybe something might go to left field, but we can deal with that as well.
And we can be ready. Well, before we kind of dip into the
solutions,
how we approach it, the solutions, I think it's worth talking about what types of scenarios people, both us and our clients, find difficult.
Yeah.
Because it can be really different for different people. And so I was thinking about this, that obviously a big one is if you're going to have to say something to someone that could come across as criticism.
Yeah.
So say you're in a work setting, you have to give someone negative feedback, or you're in a relationship and someone's done something that's upset you. I would find that difficult because I don't like upsetting other people or putting them into shame. But actually, I was also thinking something that would be a difficult conversation for me would be something where I have to be vulnerable, where I have to share something that's difficult for me.
Yeah.
I could find that conversation difficult because I don't like being vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah, it is difficult. If you've got coming back to what you were saying about if you have to deliver feedback, that is a really tricky one. And I'm always going to try and be solution focused even in the moment. So forgive me for stepping ahead. But my great friend who works in HR, her thing is that she says, and it's very true, is like when we think about giving feedback, we try and we deliver it in a way sometimes that is how we would like to have that feedback.
Yes.
But actually, it's very important to think about how that person you're giving the feedback to would like to receive it. And I think the being vulnerable thing is really good in a difficult conversation. And you don't have to like lay it all on the line.
No, it can really help the conversation.
Because it
can feel difficult to do. And I think underneath most difficult conversations is the biggest fear of all, which is the fear of rejection.
100%. Because you want to be in the tribe.
So it's the fear of the other person rejecting you, or knowing that you might make the other person feel rejected.
Yes.
I think underneath all of that. So if people listening think about the conversations the best way to think about it is, what are the conversations that you avoid or you feel stressed, like you were saying, when you're thinking about them in advance, and try and just get under the hood a bit and say, what is it about those types of conversations that are difficult? And for example, they can be more difficult the more we care about the person.
Yes.
So it could be a colleague, but you really care about them and you don't want to offend them, or you're getting feedback from someone, but you really respect them. And equally in relationships, it's often the people we're closest to, we're actually most avoidant about saying, oh, that thing you did actually didn't feel great. Do you mind doing it differently? But they're actually the people it's most important to have the difficult conversations with. That's the real paradox and the kind of tricky thing about this.
Do you think that is because that with those people that you're more comfortable with, you know that they, in terms of their reaction, they're going to modify it less than if you're in a professional work setting? Or do you think...
I think that could be it. Although sometimes people are in relationships where they know the other person does not react well to feedback or criticism. And so they're really treading on eggshells. So if you're listening and you find that the people closest to you, you feel very uncomfortable giving them any, like, not even negative feedback, just telling them things that would be better for you, that's actually a pretty big red flag. So it can be both ways. But for me, it's definitely that I really don't like to hurt the people, and I'm worried that they're going to take it that way. But then also selfishly, I'm then worried, then how will they respond? How will I feel? What will that do to the relationship? And like you said, the brain just gets carried away, and it makes it a whole disaster. And before you know it, you've decided that, you know, telling your partner you don't like the way he makes your tea is going to lead to the end of your relationship. You know, like, it's just that silly. But it's really kind of unpacking why is this so difficult? And actually, we can get into the solutions. One of the solutions to this whole thing is do it very frequently with smaller things.
Love it.
Get used to having difficult conversations. Get used to raising issues in a kind way. We can talk about how to do that in small ways. So first of all, the people in your life are used to it in a comfortable way. You're not constantly criticizing them, but you are bringing things up when they arise for you.
Yes.
They get used to it. They realise from their perspective that it's fine. The relationship doesn't end. And you get more comfortable with it.
Yes.
So that then when there's a bigger issue where you really have to sit someone down and say, look, I really need to talk about something that's really important to me. Both of you have laid some groundwork that you know that your relationship can withstand difficult conversations.
Yeah, and maybe even like if you feel like you want to give the other person a heads up, if it is a bigger conversation, like reassuring them, saying like, we need to chat about, I know it's that horrible thing, it's like as soon as you hear in a relationship, we need to talk.
Oh my God, the fear, the dread in the pit of your stomach. No one ever had a great conversation after saying we need to talk.
I know. Exactly. And I feel like that's possibly because maybe the other person is caught off guard and they don't see it coming, and therefore they are more likely to react from that point of view of like, I'm under attack and I need to defend.
Yeah, so solution number one, let people, if it's a big conversation. So this actually happened to me recently. Someone caught me off guard with a conversation that I was expecting, but not in that moment, in that setting. And because I just wasn't expecting it, I went into fight or freeze because I was just really caught off guard and my brain was a bit scrambled and I didn't respond super well. I didn't respond terribly, but it wasn't how I would have wanted to respond. Whereas if they'd said, I'd like to talk to you about X, Y, and Z when it's good for you, it would have been such a different conversation. Yeah. But the good thing is, because I always try and own my shit, is afterwards I messaged them saying, yeah, that's not how I would have liked that to go. Can we have another conversation? And then we had a great conversation. Yeah, perfect. And I said, you know, you just caught me off guard and it was really good. But that's such a good reason if something's reasonably significant, or you think, even if you don't think it's that significant, you've had ages to think about this thing. And maybe the other person doesn't even know it's coming. So just forewarning people, can we have a chat about X? And also, you know, tip number 2 is try and frame the conversation positively, either in advance or in the time. Say, look, I really like to talk to you about this because I really value our, like, say I had something to talk to you about, which, you know, you're so awesome so far, that hasn't happened. But
I love that you're like, so space. Far.
Watch this space,
you
guys.
Wait, we're going to press record and we're going to have a very difficult conversation.
Yeah, I was thinking, have we ever had a difficult conversation? But we haven't.
No.
But say we did.
Yeah.
If I said to you, and this is true, I actually honestly, I'm going to make you cry. I totally love you. I really appreciate our friendship. And you've been such a support to me. It's all true things. And I would like to talk to you about this thing because I want to make sure we have this like fantastic friendship. Yeah. And this is important to me. And I know you'll want to resolve it.
Yes.
And then, you know, and then in a nice way, I say, okay, this is the thing I want to work on.
Yeah.
You're going to receive that so differently from me just saying, oh, I thought it was really shitty how you did this thing.
Yes. Or I need to talk to you about something. You may not like it. Or something.
Oh my God. If someone says, can I call you? But they don't tell me why.
Yeah. Then that's your brain.
That's a nightmare.
Because your primitive brain is going to trip down the path. And also as well, it's like, then you feel on the back foot. And people say to me all the time, and I am one of these people too, it's like when your primitive brain starts to like run away with you, you will, when you come away from that difficult conversation, you reflect on it and you'll think to yourself, why did I not say that? Why did I not think this? It's because we've literally descended into primitive brain and we shut off all the logic. So if you feel like you are in that scenario, there's nothing wrong from saying like, I just need to take some time and we can have a better quality conversation when I...
right. So you on the recipient can also say, definitely want to talk to you about that, but now's not the moment, which I have done to people. I have said now's not the moment. You just reminded me when my mum first got a mobile phone, I don't know, she had caps like stuck on. And then the first text message she sent me, I was in the middle of a lecture and she sent me, call me now, capital letters, right?
And you're like,
I thought my dad had died.
Yes, exactly that.
So I leave this lecture. She just wants to catch up. She just wants it. And for many years afterwards, these were the messages I was getting. And I was like, okay, you have to explain why I need to call you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, saying to someone, even with the voicemail, just call someone and say, oh, I'd love to catch up with you about X.
Yeah.
I really think, I really want to bring this back into phone etiquette. Don't send someone a message saying, when can you speak?
Yeah.
Because the brain will generally assume you might just want a lovely chat with that person. The other person's brain thinks that you've got terrible news you're about to tell them. It could absolutely ruin their day.
Exactly that.
So we're going to say, like, pre-warn, choose a great time and place.
Yes.
As you said about feedback, also think about the setting.
Yes.
You know,
100%.
Some people, the best thing is to go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to respond much better than if you sit and eyeball them while you tell them all the things they're doing.
In the boardroom or something like that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's thinking about the setting that might make the other person and you comfortable. You know, I think there's this thing where someone's been stewing on something their partner did the night before, and they wait till that person comes home after a really hard day at work, and then they just spring it on them and they want to talk to them about it. And that person's exhausted and just wants to come home and chill out and have a cup of tea. So you do have to think about setting the other person up for success in this conversation.
Exactly, 100%. If you want to ensure a good outcome for the difficult conversation, it's only, and you've had time to prepare, think about this thing that's been annoying you or you want to address, you've got to give that other person a fair chance to come back with their thoughts on their conversation too.
And that's such a good point, because I think we put too much pressure on one interaction to resolve everything.
Yeah.
You should see that your difficult conversation is the beginning of an ongoing conversation. So you can even say to somebody, I'm not expecting your response in this moment.
Exactly.
I just want to bring it to the table. And when we think about feedback, so one of the things I'm hearing a lot from my corporate clients and running workshops for them on is how to give and receive feedback. We seem to have lost a lot of resilience to this. And one of the reasons is that we've just, all become a bit nicer at work, which is good, but we're not as thick-skinned. But then there's also a generation who've come in with positive parenting. So most people my age had critical parenting. You're basically just told all the things you're doing wrong, very rarely told what you're doing right. So you're reasonably thick-skinned and you can deal with it. But if you go through life, it's an extreme version, but if everyone's a winner at your school, right? And everything you do is wonderful, and then you get to the world of work and someone criticizes you, no wonder it feels bad. And one of the things I'm sharing when I'm talking to people about feedback is you have to have space in feedback for the other person to have a human response.
Yes.
And the human response to feedback goes like this. The first one is defensiveness. Normally like, F you, you're an arsehole, why are you coming at me with this? So some people skip that one, but generally it starts with that. Next step is shame. Oh, I'm a terrible person. And then you just feel bad about yourself. And then the third step, which hopefully you get to, what can I learn?
Yes.
And that's where the brilliant things happen. And one of the best things you can do in life to be successful is not expect yourself not to have those stages, but to learn to get through them really quickly.
Yes.
But when you're giving feedback to someone, whether it's personal or professional, you have to give someone space to go through being defensive and you're like, okay with it. Let them do a bit of shame. You might, when they're in shame, you might need to kind of reassure them a bit and let them get to the learning moment. But instead, we give people feedback and then we're annoyed that they just don't have this incredibly self-aware adult prefrontal cortex response of, thank you so much for the feedback, I'll go away and think about it and come back and improve. But we just activated their primal brain by attacking them with feedback. And so I think it's really important to not make it just one conversation, one moment.
Exactly.
It's very rare. There are some very, very aware people who can handle that, but most people would actually find that really difficult.
And I think even in like a relationship as well, if you have like a difficult conversation of like, I'm not happy with it, or not, you would frame it like that, like I would like something done slightly differently, or I'm not sure where this is going, like big ones.
Oh gosh, you know what, you just said that. I actually had a physical response to that. You just said to me,
I'm not sure where this relationship is going, Emilie.
Oh, isn't that funny? Because even though there's nothing even that, because I had a physical response to hearing those words.
And people, this is a really great lesson in like how, because your brain isn't just matching things that people are saying to your past experience. It's matching it to all the times it's seen on flipping TV shows. We need to talk. Where is this going? There's someone else.
Oh
or
my
something.
God.
Well, that's a whole nother difficult conversation. But have that conversation and then put a point in the diary, like lock it in to check in and see how things are going. Because especially if you're asking for like a behaviour change or something like that, life gets busy. You're asking someone to sort of like adopt a new habit. Life gets busy, things slide. it's just new learning. So it's good to have those check-in points to make sure things are on track or what needs to be adapted for both of you to move forward.
Yes. Now in a work setting, it can be very clear. You might be managing someone. Here's a goal. You need to hit your KPIs or whatever. In personal relationships, I think it is good to try not to be too attached to the outcome. The difficult conversation is you expressing how you feel and what you need.
Yeah.
But you can't control the other person. And so again, I think we set ourselves up for failure or disappointment when we're like, well, I'm going to have this conversation, and suddenly my partner, who for 20 years has behaved one way, is now tomorrow going to be a different person.
Yeah.
I think it's really healthy to express your needs and express how you feel, but try not to be too attached to the outcome and see what they do with it, or even ask them, like, how do they feel about it, versus the minute you start, especially to partner, telling them, now you have to be like this. We move into parent-child dynamics. You're starting to scold them. They're likely to be resistant. And it's not a healthy relationship. So I think the first step has to be, I'm going to just express how I feel, express what I need. That's the difficult conversation. And then I'm going to observe how they respond. And I'm also going to accept that I might have to have this conversation several times in different ways for them to really hear me. Then I can see what they do with what they hear. And if they love you, they're going to probably try and meet that need. But they might also not. And then that's useful information. And you have to either decide, well, okay, that's who they are, I can live with that. Or actually say, no, this is really important to me. I need to help them understand more. Like, I need to raise the stakes. I need to maybe more clearly articulate the impact that's having on me.
And the importance
and the importance it has to me, because maybe from their perspective, they haven't registered it.
Yes, exactly that. I feel like that's really key. And it's just giving people the opportunities to respond in a way that, so, because it's like, it's not a one-way conversation. There's got to be like that give and take. I feel like it's really important.
There has to. Another element I was talking to someone about recently is kind of emotional tone. That one of the dangers of trying to be really self-aware and emotionally intelligent things is that you can just come across as really calm all the time. And then when you raise something that's difficult for you, but you're raising something you're not happy about, people don't realize how unhappy you are. And I was once in a relationship with someone who, in their previous relationship, every time their partner didn't get what they want, they burst into tears.
Right. Okay.
And because I'm really not that person, I would raise things I wasn't happy about, and they couldn't register. Even though I used the words, I am not happy about this, they couldn't register I wasn't happy about it.
You needed to cry more.
Well, I don't think I needed to cry more, but I think there was a lesson for me in that sometimes you have to think about, how do I signal other than just the words? If the other person isn't such a words communicator, how can I signal that this is really important to me? Do I need to, sometimes it is actually, we talked about being vulnerable. Actually, did I need to be a bit more vulnerable, even though that was uncomfortable, so they could see that it was really upsetting me? Whereas I tend to be a stoic. And the problem with being a stoic is everyone thinks you're fine all the time.
100%. Yes, exactly that. And people will, and then as well, I think that becomes difficult for the stoic person, because no matter what life throws at you, everyone's like, if you do need those moments to be vulnerable, people will be like, oh, you're amazing, you've got this, nothing ever phases you. And then you almost feel like, even like if expression of emotion is hard for you, you then feel even more like you haven't got a supportive platform to express that.
Yeah, because people are expecting this version. I had a friend recently who was going through something difficult, who's very stoic. And then I just said to them, I can see this is really hard for you, and you're having to hold this together for your family because they're all going to pieces. This person just started crying because I could recognize that in them. And so I think there is also, if there are people in your life who are very stoic, stop and be a bit mindful that think, how often do they raise something? So maybe if they're not raising things very often, when they raise things, you really, really need to listen to it.
Yes.
And we get the flip side, which is the boy who cried wolf. If someone in your life is just complaining about everything, or at work is complaining about everything, what do? We start to tune them out. So then when they have a real problem, we can't tell actually whether it truly is important to them or not. So I think there's like a real balance there. And again, that comes back to being aware, but also just really paying attention to the people around you. Like, how do they respond to stress? Would it just, if someone's come at you with a conversation that you find uncomfortable being on the receiving end of it, obviously defend yourself if you need to, but then think about, what would it have been like for that person to have to bring that to me?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, if someone brings something to you that they want to address with you, it's probably because they really care about your relationship.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not...
In the moment, you're
in
like,
the moment,
I want to burn and set everything on fire.
You're like, why? You just... Well, yeah, I love your response to these things. You're like, your response is burn it down. Mine's just like, just stay really calm. But I messaged you about something last week that really annoyed me. And, you know, we can try and be too zen about things. And you did send like a burn the bridges kind of message back of just like, take this person down, like, let's end them. And obviously that's not me. But you know what? Your message really helped me. Actually, sometimes we do need the friend who's just going to really validate.
Yeah.
And actually maybe like have the less calm response. I think what I'm trying to say actually is that maybe sometimes it's better to bring more emotion into these things.
Yeah.
Especially for a very calm person. And maybe if you're higher on the emotional scale,
temper it.
It's better to think about how you temper your emotion going into those things, because it can be difficult both ways. And I think sometimes we don't bring enough emotion into difficult conversations, and then people don't really connect with what we're saying. And you know, the odd time that I have been really vulnerable with someone, and you know, I'm not really a crier, then that does break open some amazing conversations.
Yeah, for sure. Because especially if it's not normal behaviour or in character behaviour for yourself, it will probably make someone go, oh, it's like, okay, this is actually like something really serious and we need to pay full attention.
Yes. Well, yes, but can we caveat this, that sometimes, you know, you said generally people won't poke you in the eye. Sometimes you're going to have a difficult conversation and someone's going to react really badly.
Yeah.
I have had that. Have you ever had that happen to you? I've had that happen. And then you're immediately, the hairs go up on your neck and you go into fight, flight or freeze. If it's going very wrong, get yourself out of there.
Exactly.
As quickly as possible. And sometimes you have to recognise that person couldn't hear that, or it's a conversation you need to have with somebody else.
Exactly.
But you are not responsible for their response to you.
No.
So if you feel like there was something you could have handled better, always go and own it. But ultimately, sometimes people go into peacemaking because the other person had such a bad reaction.
Yes.
They go into peacemaking, solving it. No. I say, let that person have their terrible reaction. Let them calm down, and maybe they'll come back and resolve it. But don't fall into the trap, especially as a woman,
trying to backtrack,
of trying to like soothe the situation because you want to fix it all. This is really about also owning both sides of that conversation.
And I think, so having like those prepared, like the best outcome, the worst outcome, and even if it's just like what you're going to do is like to withdraw, and to have some like phrases that you can put on if things are going south, phrases that you can stand by which don't mean you backtrack, and then having a wild card outcome. And I would also say as well, it's like whether you are being approached with this difficult conversation or you're having to go to someone with a difficult conversation, once that conversation is done or that chapter is closed for the moment, do something that changes your state. Change something to like take yourself away from it. If you can go for a walk or listen to your nice music, do something to move your body away from that situation and that difficult conversation. So it's like if you can physically move, that is amazing, because it's like a very strong signal that segment is over. And now we're back to our like parasympathetic nervous system. We're safe again. And we can then really reflect, have some time out from it and then come back to it if you need to, that conversation.
Well, we talk about with animals where they, you know, animals shake after something stressful to burn the adrenaline off. That is where going to the gym or going for a run and just exorcising that emotion.
Yes.
Like
scream in a pillow.
Scream in your garden. Yeah. You know, who cares about the neighbours? Like, let's just hopefully they won't call the police. But let's just recognise, again, the danger can be that we're trying to be too calm. Yeah. Let's recognise after that moment that was a difficult experience, and you've got to try and burn that adrenaline, get 100%. That stress out of your system, and acknowledge that was difficult.
Yes.
And it's all too easy to just go straight to let's have a drink.
Exactly that. Yes. So doing something that changes that state, and also just be like, even if it didn't go to plan, be like, yay me, I had a difficult conversation.
Yes. You had the courage.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things in life, is having the courage to have the difficult conversation. I think sometimes that produces the best results, but it is the hardest thing. It's too easy to just avoid these things. But actually on the other side of those difficult conversations can be incredible relationships, amazing opportunities, increased confidence.
Yes.
Just some final thoughts on this. if someone is in one of those conversations and they feel it going sideways on either side, what are some good phrases that you can use to kind of gently shut it down and get out of it?
I feel like you could say something like, you put me on the spot here. Something like, I feel like we need to just take a moment to just regroup.
Take a beat.
And we can come, just to put, I know this is my favourite one. Let's just press pause on this for the moment, because it's like, we're not drawing a line in it, but we're pressing pause. And there's something very powerful about saying the word pause that people really get and really understand, no matter how heightened they are. Let's just press pause on it for the moment. We can revisit it when we're both in a better space.
Yeah, I love that.
And then get out
ASAP. And I think also, depending on what the other person said, you don't have to agree with it, but acknowledging it. You can say,
I hear what you're saying.
I hear what you're saying. I can see you're annoyed about this. I need to go away and think about it. You're just expressing your need. I need to go away and think about it. It is good, if you can, to give the other person a time frame. Let's talk about this.
Exactly.
A minimum, once you've been activated, I think you need a minimum of 2 hours to cool off. I don't know if you feel any differently about that.
I mean, if you can get, it depends who it is, but if you can get I know they say never go to sleep on an argument, but I really feel like the power of you having a sleep and a REM sleep cycle on it definitely really helps, like, clear your logic.
You might have even forgotten it in the morning.
Yes.
But I think at least 2 hours, but ideally often, especially in work, it's quite good to have a couple of days. Give them a couple of days. You have a couple of days. Let's regroup and come back to this. That's a really good way out. We talked before, actually, when people's brain gets activated, even in the moment, if you can't, for some reason, if you're not in the position of power to shut that down, just saying, I'm just going to pop and get a coffee or go to the bathroom, just to get yourself out of that room for 5 minutes, just to calm down, come back. I love a recap. Let's just recap what we've said so far before we kind of jump ahead. It's just so easy on these difficult conversations to jump to reactivity and wanting a solution. And when we talked before about saboteurs, I think one of the saboteurs is that we think something's painful about this, so the solution is to end this relationship.
Sure.
In whatever form it is. And that's when people say and do things that are rash, that they regret later. So the even if you think, oh, this has just gone really sideways and I don't think I'm ever going to speak to this person again, try and buy yourself a couple of days. Because the number of people I know who have felt very differently in the moment versus 2 days later is, I mean, it's probably like 98% of the time.
Exactly that. And also, I suppose, if you're on the receiving end, and especially if you can try and see, well, just say to someone, I appreciate you bringing this to me. It must have been hard.
Yes.
Because you've not only I appreciate you bringing this to me. I know it must have been hard. I just need to take some time to reflect on it. I'll come back to you in X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
Because then that's also reassuring that person that they've done a great thing by bringing it to your attention. It's also not leaving them in a freak out state where their primitive brain is going to be running all the potential scenarios when you come back to this conversation. And it just leaves that space open for a much more productive conversation the next time.
I love this.
It's so good.
It's so good. As always, everybody listening, this doesn't go perfectly. We don't do this perfectly. Nobody does. So don't ever beat yourself up. The fact you're even brave enough to have a difficult conversation is absolutely amazing. But we hope we've given you some tips and things to think about so that you can have those conversations and get really great outcomes from them.